premier Rockets podcast. It's H-Town Hoops, hosted by Brandon Scott and Adam Spolane.
Not exactly the start that the Rockets were looking for in their season opener. They fall flat in Orlando to the Magic, 116-86, a 30-point drubbing to start the season, Adam. Man, I know Rockets fans were excited to have basketball back. NBA fans are excited to have basketball back. And, man, the Rockets could not have started the season with a bigger dud. Their top picks, you noted this on Twitter, and it was hard to not notice if you were watching the game. But the Rockets have 3 top 4 picks on their roster who were, for all intents and purposes, nothing in this game, that being Jalen Green, Jabari Smith Jr., and Amin Thompson, the rookie, guys in year 3, year 2, and year 1, respectively. None of them looked like necessarily like cornerstone players. Now, you're not going to overreact to one game. Yeah, it was just one bad game. But for it to be the season opener, for it to be the first time that you see these guys, obviously under a new coaching staff, and they're all new and different teammates and all that. But, man, you would like to see a little bit better effort defensively. You would like to see them playing a little bit better offensively. I wonder where the shooting is going to come from. I wonder what the defense is going to look like outside of that start to the third quarter, Adam, where they, the first half wasn't really good, but they come out really good in that third quarter, and then they go about a stretch of about 13 minutes where they score 12 points, or 12 minutes where they score 13 points, something like that. That was really, really pitiful, and that was pretty much the game at that point. What were your initial impressions of watching this very underwhelming performance from the Rockets to start the season?
It looked like what we've seen the last couple of years. I mean, that's really, you spend basically an entire summer talking about all these improvements that you want to make. And again, it is one game, but it just looked like more of the same. It was disappointing. I thought first quarter they were okay. I thought they at least defended a little bit in the first quarter. The half-court offense was bad. I thought they were pretty good once they actually got out in transition. It just didn't happen nearly enough. Alperen Şengün was good in the first half, and then he kind of disappeared in the second half. And there's just not a whole lot of positives, I guess, that you can say. Jae'Sean Tate had his moments when he played. But yeah, you just look up and down the box score, and it was a pretty underwhelming night, to say the least. Orlando looked good. I know a lot of people thought Orlando might take the leap. They look like they're ready to take the leap. The Rockets, on the other hand, they do not look like they're ready to take the leap. And, that's a disappointing way to start the year.
So an underrated, disappointing, and discouraging development out of this game, or a feeling that I came from watching this game. You tell me if I'm crazy for saying this, but I made this point on Twitter myself. Cole Anthony came off the bench and was really good, had more than at least 20 points off the bench for the Magic, and looked excellent. I know he just got paid a few days ago. His contract extension got announced. Nice, solid rotational player. I watched this game and did not even feel like the Rockets had a bench player that was anywhere near as good as Cole Anthony. And I hesitate to say that because they do have a top 4 pick on the bench, even though he's a rookie. They do have some talent on the bench. I know Tari Eason's not going to be playing for a while, but Cole Anthony seemed to stand out more than really any of the Rockets' cornerstone pieces, and certainly their bench. It was just that was a sobering realization for me watching the game. I don't know if you think I'm crazy for that.
No, you're right. And that guy who was supposed to be the guy to come off the Rockets bench, that was supposed to be Kevin Porter Jr. And you could kind of tell how much that they don't have anybody like that anymore. Somebody who could come off the bench and give you offense and beat teams at all 3 levels, and they missed that. And we talked about this quite a bit over the summer. I didn't think that they were expecting a ton out of Amin Thompson as a rookie. He's a rookie, and you hope that you had other guys, and you just saw he wasn't ready for it right now. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with a rookie not being ready for this level just yet. But and I guess we probably should have known, or at least I should have known, that it was going to be rough for him. I remember I was at the preseason game on Friday, And I thought that Amen Thompson in the fourth quarter looked like the best player on the floor. He was in complete control of everything. He was all over the place. And so after the game, I asked Udoka, is he ahead of where you guys thought he would be at this point? And Udoka's response was, no, not really. We kind of, everything that he's doing right now is basically instinctual. Like he still doesn't really know what he's doing yet on the floor. And I think that you could see that. I think that you could see that once you got into a real game against NBA players who were actually like trying to win the game, then you could see that he's just not quite ready for this. And again, there's nothing wrong with that. This is a whole, it's one thing to go from college to the NBA, but he's going from overtime elite to the NBA. That's a completely different level. Like he's going up like 6 steps in competition. So it's going to look rough. It's going to look rough early on. So that was a little bit, we should have been ready for that. We should have been prepared for him to struggle in his first game. But as we kind of have broached this topic already, the fact that the other top picks did not take that next step, that to me is not alarming because, again, it's game one, but it is discouraging because I think you would have liked to have seen Jalen Green and Jabari Smith Jr. look like cornerstones to your franchise, and they did not look like that tonight.
Yeah, you mentioned Amen Thompson, and he had that one possession at the end of the first quarter, I think it was, where it was just like this awkward 2-man game with, I can't remember if it was Alperen Sengun. It was one of the bigs, and it just ends up being this real clunky possession. And I point that play out just to note that he looked the opposite of what you described in that last preseason game. Like he didn't look in control or sure of himself. And that Udoka quote that you mentioned, or after talking to Udoka, that totally makes sense that he would say that. Yeah, that passes the eye test, that he still is getting a feel and getting an understanding for what exactly he's doing out there. But guys, to your other point, and the bigger point, the major point here, talking about the top picks underwhelming in this season opener, Rockets go down by 30 in Orlando. The other guys didn't really seem to have a good feel or idea for exactly what they're doing. I thought Jabari seemed to look aggressive early, but obviously the shot wasn't falling. I mean, he took a shot that I really liked, one dribble, pull up, looked to really get involved early on in the game, missed it, but felt like a really good shot. Jalen Green in this game, I guess for some reason that's the most disappointing one, because let's see what's his line here. 2 of 10 from the field. 1 3-point shot attempt. Like I don't even think I noticed that in the game that he only took 1 3, and he missed it. His shot just looked like he didn't look anything like a shooter. Now, we talk about him getting to the free throw line last year, that being an improvement from his game as a rookie. Did that a little bit today too, or tonight too, 6 or 7 from the free throw line. But just an underwhelming, again, I don't think I can overstate how underwhelming it was. You had major NBA insiders writing features and pieces about how Jalen Green was going to take that major leap in year 3. And obviously we're only 1 game into year 3, but it did not have that feel at all. It did not, like the approach, the aggression, the shot itself, man. He just kind of looked like another guy out there, another guy who's just really athletic, but not like a special basketball player.
Yeah, I think this stat might kind of put everything into focus of what we're talking about. They trailed by 18 after the third quarter. Fred VanVleet played 28 minutes through 3 quarters. Again, they were down by 18 at the end of the third quarter. They were a -1 in VanVleet's 28 minutes. They were a -12 when Green was on the floor. So basically, those minutes where VanVleet was not on the floor, so VanVleet is off the floor for 8 minutes in the first 3 quarters. The Rockets are a -17 in those minutes. Who was on the floor during that stretch? That's Jalen Green. That's where you need Jalen Green to step up, are those moments where Fred VanVleet is not out there. And he's the one who should be running the offense at that point. I know maybe Amen Thompson had the basketball, but the way that Udoka had the rotation set up, it was basically to be for Jalen Green to be on the floor when Fred VanVleet is off, and the Rockets were awful in those minutes. So I think that has to be what is most disappointing about this game, is that here's Jalen Green, a third-year guard. You're hoping he's going to take the leap and be one of these guys who is going to get the $250 million rookie level extension or whatever the money turns out to be. And he's, on the floor, able to run the offense on his own, and that's the result that you get. So we'll have to look at the numbers a little bit closer, but that I think is the first thing that really stands out, is that first 3 quarters, you're down 18, but with Van Vliet on the floor, you're a -1, but with Green on the floor, you're a -12. So to me, they just sunk in those minutes when it was Green as the lead guard.
Yeah, one of the things that we talked about in the preseason and training camp was what the rotations would look like. That was something that we were both really curious about, as we should be. It's a new team, new coach. So obviously something that we should be paying attention to and monitoring. And from my notes, unless I got this wrong, you correct me if I did, it looked like Amin Thompson and Jock Landale were the first substitutions in the game.
Yes.
That's how I believe that to go. And they came in for Jalen Green and Alperen Sengun. Now, the way it plays out, and I figured this once they did that, was, hey, they're gonna probably end up staggering throughout the game, as you mentioned. Fred VanVleet, when he's not out there, Jalen Green being the primary ball handler, even if Amin Thompson is technically the backup point guard. And then if crunch time exists, if meaningful basketball is being played at the end of the game, then you'd imagine Jalen Green and Fred VanVleet would then share the court. But I just want to point out that, just to co-sign everything that you just said, which was, factual, what actually happened, but also it was the bench. It was the Magic. So Jalen Green leading sort of in some ways the second unit, or effectively your backup point guard when Fred VanVleet's not out there. And then also the Magic's second unit being the thing that really, really killed them in the second half and really throughout the game. The bench for Orlando was excellent. And that was just not the case for the Rockets tonight. And I feel like some of that charts with Jalen Green's time on the floor. And you feel like, at least I feel like, Jalen Green leading your second unit, or Jalen Green being your second primary ball handler, should work well against bench units and should work well against the Magic. Like that, like these are the types of games you kind of think bigger picture. What are the Rockets? What are they going to be? And you kind of alluded to this earlier. The Magic look like they're a team that's supposed to be taking that leap. Well, both teams should be in a position where they feel like they're beating the other. Like, hey, I'm at the very least, if we're showing progress, if I'm a Rockets fan, if we're showing progress, we should be beating the Magic, or at least being competitive with the Magic. If I'm a Magic fan, we should be beating the Rockets, or at least be competitive with the Rockets. And that's obviously advantage Magic fan after tonight. So yeah, top picks underwhelming. Jalen Green just not impactful nearly enough as supposedly a top level player in this first game. Jabari Smith, with all of that promise that I feel like came from Summer League. Hey, here's the what will we overreact to more? Summer League Jabari Smith or season opener Jabari Smith? Stay tuned. Open up your Twitter /X timelines to see what the next narrative is going to be. But the fact of the matter is that none of those guys looked, as I mentioned before, none of those guys look special.
And I want to bring up one other thing about Smith. The one thing that we talked about with him last year that, obviously he didn't shoot the ball well. He wasn't very efficient offensively, but he did rebound. And tonight, and I'm sure we'll get into the rebounding a bit at some point. 5 rebounds for him. Again, that's something that they got to be more physical.
Yeah.
And they were just dreadful on the glass in this game. And that's the sort of, like, you got to be tougher than this. And they showed a lack of toughness in this game that I think is disappointing. I mean, they didn't have anybody with more than 8 rebounds. Orlando in this game had 16 offensive boards. They were out rebounded. The Rockets were 56-31.
Yeah,
I mean, that tells us
that's huge.
Right? Yeah,
that's huge, Adam. Like that's, and so let's get to that though, because that is the next point. Rebounding and defense were subpar. Like I know, like offense is sexy, and they're like they shot okay at times, but it was just like the lack of offense from the guys that I expected to see offense from, like Jalen Green and Jabari Smith, is what really stood out sort of offensively. But the overall story, the team story, the Rocket story was that they got out rebounded, but to the tune of what you just said. The numbers are out there, and the defense was subpar. Now the Rockets were a damn good rebounding team last year, one of the best, if not the best, at times.
They were a good offensive rebounding team, which was
Right.
which in a sense they cheated by being a good offensive rebounding team because
they missed so many damn shots.
Well, no, they just crashed the boards and they
Yeah.
didn't care about and they were terrible in transition because of that. So I will say really quick before you get to what you do want to say, they only gave up 5 fast break points tonight. So there you go. There's some improvement.
Yeah, well, who needs to give up fast break points when you can't play half court defense worth a damn? And that was the story, man. Like, why? How is it? How is it that this team? Ime Udoka after the game, one of the things that he was talking about was effort and toughness. Like, I think that's part of the disappointment too, aside from what we just talked about with the top picks. But effort and I don't know if toughness was the word, but basically something that's analogous to toughness. Effort and toughness wasn't there, man. He talked about jitters. I mean, I guess that's a thing, but man, if effort and toughness, that's what rebounding and defense is pretty much all about, and they did not have that. That's disappointing to me from an Ime Udoka-led team, man. And he said, hey, that's not what the type of basketball we're going to play. That's not the kind of team we're going to be. So, hey, I'll take him at his word for it and assume that they will improve and be better. But, I mean, it stood out to me and was especially a letdown that the rebounding, that the Magic were able to dominate them on the boards and dominate that. Like, that's the reason why I feel like they also couldn't get into a flow. The Rockets couldn't get into a flow because they couldn't control the boards. And when you're catching the ball out of the net, that's also a tough way to get into a rhythm offensively. So, I mean, these are key elements of the game here where they just obviously were not good enough.
Yeah, I'm waiting for the numbers to get posted, but I am interested to see just what the pace numbers were, because again, the half court offense was not good. They were okay once they did get out in transition, but only 11 fast break points. I mean, that's not going to be good enough. Like, this team, they are too athletic and young to be just like going at a slow pace. And so, like you said, if you are taking the ball out from under your own net every single time, you can't get in transition. Like, that's just not going to be there, especially when they have Green and Thompson running their offense. Like, that's when they have to go just with a breakneck pace and try and beat you down the floor every single time, because I don't think that group is going to be good enough in the half court to beat teams. And so that's just what we saw tonight. Orlando was the aggressor basically in every aspect. I mean, they got to the free throw line a lot more, 26-16 in free throw attempts. We've already talked about the rebounding, the turnovers. I mean, 18 turnovers again. That's something that you can't do. Even Van Vliet, fell into that a little bit. But Green, 4 turnovers and 2 assists. Thompson had 4 turnovers. It was just a sloppy game. I guess it's kind of what you expect for on opening night when you're trying to put this group together. But yeah, there are certainly some things that you hope for them, that this is just the baseline, that this is just game one, and you will progressively get better every single night. But yeah, all this stuff that they really preached for the summer and through summer league and in training camp, we didn't see that in this game.
Yeah, the Magic at halftime, the Magic had 9 offensive rebounds. The Rockets had 11 turnovers at that point. I wrote in my notes: tempo, shooting, turnovers, and interior defense. Not good from the Rockets in the first half. We mentioned they had that little spurt to start the third quarter. That was really the only real high mark for this team, and then it kind of went off the rails from there. I want to ask you real quick about the rotations.
Let me just really quick, because the data has been posted. They're at a 95.5 possession pace today. So that's 95.5 possessions per 48 minutes. That's what they were tonight. Last year, that would have been slowest in the league by far, by a possession.
Yeah.
So that's how slow. That's how slow the pace of this game was. And again, that's not going to work. And let me just see really quick, because obviously it's hard to do this for a game like this, because they were garbage time basically in the second half, or at least in the first quarter. So I just want to see what it was for the first half. This is, and it's not up for the half yet, but I just the fact that you're at a 95 pace, or 95 possession, that's not going to work.
I mean, and they were down 54-43 at halftime. So I mean, you have to figure that they weren't playing at a great. I mean, again, their best stretch was that first part of the third quarter. So if that was their pace for the game, then you could imagine that a good piece of that, a good chunk of that, was when they were down 11 in the first half.
Yes.
I was going to mention the road, since we have talked in previous times about the rotations. What did you think? Like, I know they're not completely whole with Tari Eason not being out there, because he certainly figures into the rotation and what they would do even early in the game. But I mentioned earlier about Amon Thompson, Jacques Landale being out there. There was a lineup out there at one point. I'm trying to remember who it was. If it was, so Jalen Green was out, Fred VanVleet was out, or no. I think it was Fred VanVleet, Amon Thompson. Man, I had this up on Twitter, but it was a really, really bad. Jayshawn Tate, I think Jabari Smith, and maybe Landale out there. And I'm like, where's that offense supposed to come from? Like those are lineups that worry me. And especially if you're going to be clunky and still be trying to figure it out offensively, man, you need scorers out there at all times. It was notable to me that Cam Whitmore didn't get minutes until garbage time. Not that I just like, he's just got to be out there, but they weren't scoring points, and they had this weird lineup out there at one point that I didn't quite understand. I think, Adam, and I'm getting your opinion on the rotation, but I just want to say this before I ask. I think I like Jeff Green and Reggie Bullock, but I say it correctly this time. Reggie Bullock.
You got it?
And Jeff Green, I think I like them the most coming off the bench today. I'm not even looking at their numbers right now, what their plus minuses are, but I felt like at the very least, Jeff Green brought, like we talk about rebounding and defense. I'm not looking at the numbers, but effort and toughness, I thought he brought that. And then Reggie Bullock at least does provide shooting and can defend. And so, like, I found myself liking these two additions that were not all that noteworthy that they made, considering the moves that they made over the offseason. I felt myself liking them more as substitutions. I don't know. Like, it was a weird night to watch basketball, or to watch the Rockets at least, because I'm like, oh man, I don't know about these three top four picks, but man, give me some Jeff Green and Reggie Bullock out there, man. Like, it was just odd.
I thought Tate was pretty good.
Yeah.
And Bullock is somebody that I'm interested to see what happens just with his minutes, because he can shoot. But the problem is they have so many of those wing type players already. They need somebody, at least right now, who can run the offense. And that, again, I brought this up at the top, and I'll repeat it. That's where they really miss Kevin Porter Jr.
Yeah.
And obviously they had no choice. They had to move on from him. But I think they went into this season and they planned the entire offseason that he was going to run their second unit, or at least he was going to be out there, and he was going to get big minutes, and he was going to be a big contributor to this team. And we saw it night one when they go to the bench, or at least right now, when VanVleet is not out there, they're going to struggle. And I think that's something that is probably going to be the case really for at least the first month or so. Like, it's not like Amin Thompson is going to become a quality NBA player like overnight. Like, it's going to take some time. Like, he's got all the talent in the world, and nobody denies that. Like, he can do some things that nobody else can do, but it's gonna be, there's some growing pains that are going to come with it. And so that's where they need Green to step up, because if Thompson's going to be out there, and he's going to be out there with Green, and then also Şengün, we need to talk about Şengün here in a minute.
Yeah.
But like, that's where Jalen Green has to be the guy, and that's where Jalen Green has to take over the offense. And there are too many times where it just felt like he wasn't out there. And
yeah,
that's the sort of thing that you can't have happen. Well,
so you're already hitting on it, because this is going to be my next question, and We got Austin Mendez handling this thing for us behind the scenes. You can go ahead and pop that up there about the offense, man. And I don't want you to feel like you're beating a dead horse or repeating yourself here, but that's where I'm at right now, man. Like, so, and let me lay this out. Jalen Green, not yet an efficient scorer. Still, like it's been 2 seasons and then 1 game into year 3. And we cannot sit here and credibly say that he is an efficient scorer. Talented as hell, but not an efficient scorer. Jabari Smith Jr., talented as hell. Has had some moments when he scored efficiently, certainly set the world on fire again in Summer League, but don't feel like we can sit here and credibly say I would switch his to say not a prolific scorer. Because he can. I think he can be more efficient at times. At least his shooting profile suggests that, but certainly not a prolific scorer. Okay, those are 2 of your top 4 picks. Amen Thompson not considered a scorer to begin with. We'll see how he develops offensively, what his shot ends up looking like. I know he's been working on it with Ben Sullivan, and he's a rookie, like you mentioned, not anywhere close to a finished product, but suffice it to say, not an efficient or prolific scorer. You talked about Jalen Green, man. Where will the offense come from here, man? Like, is that feels like it? Like the thing that worried me, like I would have been more comfortable if when things started to go off the rails. You notice when things went off the rails a little bit, Adam, that Fred VanVleet just started chucking it a little bit. Well, okay, fine. But I would have much rather that been maybe Jalen Green and to have felt better about it once he started doing it. You know, like once garbage minutes come and your best scorer is the one that goes out there and just starts volume shooting and getting you back in the game. And that wasn't him. Like I see Fred VanVleet out there chucking it. I just noticed here, just looking at the box score, didn't stand out to me at the game, but does pass the eye test in retrospect. Jalen Green takes 1 3. You really take 1 3? Where's the offense going to come from, man?
You know, early in the game, there were a lot of Şengün post-ups, and those were effective. I mean, he starts the game out by making his first 6 shots, but then what happens after that? He doesn't make another shot after.
Yep.
They need, and this was an issue with him last year, where he would get off to great starts. First quarter, he'd be great. Second quarter, he'd be good, and then he would really tail off at the end of games. And you can go back and just look at his splits and just his scoring from quarter to quarter, and it just declines as each quarter goes along. So I guess, you know, early in the game, you can maybe focus on those Şengün post-ups. But the problem with that also is that you're trading, you know, those are 2-pointers. That's not, you know, as we've talked about, post-ups aren't the most efficient type of offense that you can run. And I think that there's a reason why Orlando wasn't sending help on those post-ups. Like they were content with, okay, we'll give you your post-ups. We're not going to foul you. We're not going to leave shooters. And if you want to beat us, go ahead. But we don't think that you can do this the whole game. And that turned out to be the case. I'll have to see exactly how many post-ups that Şengün finished with in this game. But it wasn't quite as the efficiency of that waned as the night went along. But Jalen Green's supposed to be the leading scorer. Like that's the guy who is supposed to be able to put the ball in the bucket from all 3 levels. He's supposed to have the ball in his hands. He did he got to the free throw line tonight, which was a positive. But he's just got to look to be a little bit more aggressive. And when he has the ball, he needs to look to get to the rim because, again, very few people can stay in front of him when he does. And maybe this is just a tough matchup, and Orlando does have a lot of length, and that's not easy to play against sometimes. But Orlando's not the only team that has a ton of length. Like you're going to have to figure out how to score against good defenses. And I don't know. Tonight was just you were hoping to see more than what you wound up seeing, and it's not like you look at just the offense. They only scored 86 points. They shot the ball okay from 3. I mean, they're 35% from 3 in this game. You make 12, you'll take that. But just they did not.
But their best player took 1.
Yeah,
the best player took 1.
They made less than half their shots from the paint. Again, that's not going to work either. Like, you've got to be, if you're going to get into the paint, you've got to be able to at least make those shots or at least get fouled. So not only were they missing shots from inside, they weren't getting fouled. Only 16 free throws. That, again, is the sort of thing that can't happen. And Jabari Smith took 2 free throws. Alperen Şengün took 4. Van Vliet didn't get to the line at all. Their bench guys took a combined 4 free throws. Amen Thompson, or excuse me, they took 3 free throws. Amen Thompson took 2, and Jeff Green took 1. So the fact that all your bench guys can only combine for 3 free throws, that's a bit of a problem also. So you've got to be able to get to the line. I'd have to go back and look at the 3-point stuff for Green, because I remember he had the 1 pull-up, but and I'll ask you this, did you feel like he passed on any? Were there any looks that he passed up?
Early, I felt like there were, I'm trying to remember if it was him specifically. I felt like there were good looks that were passed up early in the game, but now I'm fading on exactly who all passed them up. So I don't want to say that he did if my memory's a little hazy right there. But I did feel like, just kind of overall and generally, that they were passing up a couple of good looks early on in the game.
I know Şengün did. Şengün passed up a couple of looks from 3. He only wound up taking 1. So I mean, those are 2 guys who are going to have the ball a lot. And especially Şengün, we've talked about this to death, and this is a point that Ime Udoka has made throughout camp. Like, if they're going to give you that shot, take it, because you driving into guys is not a good offense, but you taking open threes, that's a good offense. So again, he's got to take that shot when it's there, and for him to only take 1 when he had the ball in his hands as much as he did, that's an issue. Like, that's something that he's got to get better at. But I think who's going to score, like, they have scorers in that starting lineup. It's what happens when they go to the bench. That's where the scoring needs to come from, and that's where it's going to be Jalen Green, because it does look like right now it's going to be Thompson and Jalen Green together when the rest of that second unit is out there, and I think Şengün will also be out there. Like, if they have Green and Şengün on the floor together, like, those two should have chemistry enough to where they can create enough offense to help the team float.
If I was going to point out a positive thing that I liked, and I saw this early on in the game, a little bit less so as the game developed, especially in that second half when things again went off the rails and it wasn't competitive anymore, it was garbage time. But early in the game, when it was still somewhat entertaining, I was encouraged by Jalen Green moving without the ball. I thought there were moments early in the game where he looked like he was doing a really good job of that. And that's something that I think, or at least I think, Rockets fans should hope that he's better with, even though a big part of the story is him being on the ball more, him being more of a primary ball handler. I think that him moving without the ball is just something that he could improve at generally, and something that he could be really good at because of what kind of athlete that he is. He's just like, he's a physical matchup problem, because of his speed and leaping ability. So I did feel good about that. It just wasn't a lot of that. Like, I'm talking about, like, very early on in the game, and like specifically some of the 2-man game stuff that I would see with either the 2 guards or with Şengün with either of the 2 guards. So Şengün and Fred VanVleet, or Şengün and Jalen Green. I thought that those things early in the game looked pretty good. I don't know if they went away from it or what it was. I mean, the offense was just so disjointed, and the pace was so bad. Spacing wasn't good. They turned the ball over like crazy. Like, it was just, man, it was just awful. It was so bad. It was so bad overall. But like, there were these moments early in the game where I'm like, oh, little 2-man game with the guards there. Oh, a little 2-man game with Şengün. I mean, and they've done a little bit of that before, but liked what I saw. Was encouraged very, very early on about Jalen Green moving without the ball. But then when you in the game and he's, 2 for 10, only takes 1 3, and it's just overall not the aggressor, does not look like the number 2 overall pick. It just, not a great feeling, not too encouraging. Of course, they got 81 more of these, so we'll see how those go. But yeah, man, where will the offense come from? We're looking at you, Jalen Green. We're looking at you, Jabari Smith, as a secondary scorer, right? Like, Jalen Green should be the leading scorer. Jabari Smith should be a knockdown shooter. And that's that, and it ain't. That's what it's supposed to be, and that's not what it is yet, So, again, I'm not trying to overreact after one game, but you want to come away, even in a loss, you want to come away from it with a feeling, right? With a feeling of, oh, okay, that's what they're doing, or that's what that's going to look like. And when you go down by 30 to the Orlando Magic and look the way that they did, it's I do think it's fair to question what exactly is going on and what exactly everybody is.
Yeah, and we'll see how it looks on Friday.
Yeah.
You have a day to regroup. It can't look worse, I don't think. I mean, you would hope it can't look worse, but you'd like to see. This is not what they envisioned, back in when camp started, like losing by 30 and only scoring 8. Like you can't. You're not winning games if you're not hitting 90. If you're not cracking 90, you're just not. So
Yep.
they need to play with more pace. They need to take better care of the basketball, and they just, frankly, they need to be more physical. To get out rebounded by 25, that's not going to work. And if you aren't willing to get dirty and get rebounds, then you can't be on the floor. And so we can run through these rebounding numbers again, but for Jabari Smith and Alfred Şengün to combine for 13 rebounds in 35 minutes, that's just not going to work.
Not good enough.
You have to rebound the ball, and you at least Amen Thompson rebounded a little bit. I mean, there weren't a whole lot of other things that he did well, but he did rebound, and it looked like he was willing to at least show a little bit of physicality. But play with more pace, play with more physicality, and hopefully you see some improvement, because otherwise it's going to be a long year.
Yeah, well, look, man, that's something that's got to improve immediately, though. Like, and I'm talking about Friday against the San Antonio Spurs, who, as we record this, I'm watching them against the Dallas Mavericks. They're up like 6 with 8 minutes to go in the second quarter against the Dallas Mavericks as we talk right now. Like, that needs to improve immediately. And this is why. We talked already about cornerstones, the 3 top 4 picks, right? Amen Thompson, obviously a rookie, but Jalen Green and Jabari Smith, guys that you're really expecting to take that step. They didn't look like they were necessarily ready to take that next step in the season opener. But when we talk about like toughness and being willing to get dirty, all of that kind of stuff, the things that are required to rebound and to play well defensively, which they did not do tonight. When you make Ime Udoka your head coach and kind of give him the keys to the franchise, let him sort of be the guy philosophically and thought wise that you're leaning on, because he's your new head coach and culture setter. And the marquee free agents that you bring in are Fred VanVleet and Dillon Brooks, 2 really scrappy guys, with that being their reputation in the NBA for as long as they've been in it. Like, those 3 additions, and I'm not saying that the toughness of the team is all on just those 3 guys, but when those are the 3 marquee additions to the team, what the team can't lack, at least in my view, is toughness, grit, willingness to get dirty, effort, all these things that, I guess kind of cliches, but genuinely parts of these guys' brand. Talking about Ime Udoka, Fred VanVleet, and Dillon Brooks. You can't lack for that. When that's what you added to your team, that's what's supposed to be kind of different about the door. At least one of the things that's supposed to be kind of different about the team. And to not have that, I don't think that that's going to be acceptable for very long, or should not be acceptable for very long. Everybody around is going to be around for a while, sign the long-term deals, all of that. And nobody's trying to get rid of anybody after one game. But those are the types of things that I feel like need to improve immediately, just so at the very least they can be who they told us they were going to be.
Let me just add one more thing, because we really haven't talked about him. Dillon Brooks was really good.
Yes,
played a really good game today.
Hey, how about him guarding Paolo Banchero? I thought he held him in check.
And then they moved him to front. Like, I think the one thing, and this is probably something that we should have talked about a little bit earlier, but the one thing that we saw from this game is that Ime Udoka is going to stick Dillon Brooks on whoever the other team's best player is. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter the size. It doesn't matter the quickness. Like you saw, he started out on Banchero, and then they were getting lit up by Franz Wagner, so he switched him over to Franz Wagner. So I think that Dillon Brooks, and by the way, Dillon Brooks shot the ball really well too. Only took 7 shots. He was 5 of 7 from the field, 4 of 6 from 3. That's everything that you could have asked for. So I thought Van Vliet was fine, and we talked about how much better the Rockets were when he was on the floor compared to when he was off. And then Dillon Brooks was also very good in this game. So those are, I think, the big positives. The problem with that is that the two biggest positives in this game are the veterans. Like, you would like to be able to sit here and say that the young cornerstones who they've drafted in the top 4 the last 3 years, you'd like to be able to say those were your best players. Those were, the high points. Those were the players of the game, and you can't. So I do think that, the 3 best players that they had today were Tate, Brooks, and Van Vliet. That's great. But at the same time, you would like the young guys to be the best players. And right now, they weren't it, and they weren't even close. So,
yeah, well, Brooks and Van Vliet and Şengün led the team, had a team high 14 points. Like, as cool as it is of what you just mentioned, that Dillon Brooks was as good as he was, he can't be one of your best, arguably your best offensive player by going 5 of 7 for 14 points. Like, if that's it, then I mean, you're in for a rude awakening. That's not good. But it does bear mentioning, as you just did, and we can just reiterate here that, like, look, Dillon Brooks, what's he here for? To be a defensive stopper, to be a plus defender, your best defender. He was that. Like, that. If there was one thing that was on brand to the expectation, or consistent with the expectation tonight, it was that Dillon Brooks would be your best defender. To your point, is going to defend whoever the best player is. Literally, my first note in the game, the first note that I took was Dillon Brooks guarding Paolo Banchero. And I'm like, oh, okay, there it goes. At least we know how that's going to go in every matchup. Whoever the best player is, assuming that they're not 7 feet tall, Dillon Brooks is going to guard them. So that is, oh my God, the one saving grace. Dillon Brooks is who you thought he was, and then there was the remaining uncertainty of what the Rockets have built here. So that's that, man. Look, we'll circle back. We'll have plenty of games to react to. They got the San Antonio Spurs on Friday. They've got the Golden State. This Warriors that Sunday's already here, man. The calendar is really kicking my ass, man. I for some reason, I had the Warriors game being like 2 weeks from now. It's on Sunday. So that's next. San Antonio Spurs, Sunday or Friday, Golden State Warriors on Sunday. That's the home opener, by the way. So if y'all want to get out to Toyota Center, if you haven't already looked up tickets, not a bad, I don't feel like a bad way to start the season, with Warriors energy and all of that. Like, obviously teams are in much different places from the golden era of the Warriors Rockets rivalry, but hopefully, man, we've got some at least different type of basketball to react to. I know you don't get invested in the results, but the quality of basketball, and this is the first game. That's what I'm saying. Yeah, that for all of our sakes, whether we care who wins or not, if we're gonna dedicate our time to this, Rockets, make it worth our time, make it worth our while. Come on, man. Like that what we saw on this season opener ain't it. I got a text message from Ron Hughley from the Drive, our afternoon show at Sports Radio 610. He texted me and Tyler, their producer, and he said, man, or maybe it was even Tyler who texted, like, man, they're really going to open this thing up with a 30-point loss to Orlando. Like, that's what we're doing here. So I'm very curious to see how much of this game gets broken down on their show. But we will do it plenty on the H-Town Hoops podcast. He is Adam Spolane. I am Brandon Scott. Austin Mendez handles things for us behind the scenes. Make sure that y'all are subscribing, rating, reviewing, telling people about the podcast. Also subscribe to the Sports Radio 610 YouTube page, where you can catch this podcast in video form and all other sort of really cool video content from 610. And until next time, y'all be good.